wanna be round a champion, a champion. This is me, I still on it, 'cause you all wanna be loved. Yeah, you all wanna be loved.
Hey, and welcome back to the Crimson Dynasty. I'm your host, C'Chi, and I know a few of you are familiar with this show. We have an exciting show tonight. We have a guest that I know a lot of you are familiar with, but I do want to get things started by saying welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new. We're so glad to have you here. We really hope that you like and leave comments in the live chat, but also share this video so we can push it out to even more viewers and fans. You know, now that Alabama is, of course, going to the SEC championship, we know we're in the mouths and the brains and the thoughts of a lot of people. So, you know, we definitely want to get this out there. But before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Workspace Solutions. So if your business needs a digital presence or a full-fledged marketing team at an affordable price, be sure to reach out to them. You can Google them and just see what they have to offer, and you can reach out to them directly. So without further ado, we do have our guest co-host, Coach Smook, which I know a lot of you are familiar with. But we also have another guest, Chris Owens. He didn't play no games. When he was at Alabama, he was on our O-line, of course. I know a lot of you know that, but he had some really huge games, particularly in that 2019 to 2021 time frame. Won 2 national championships at Alabama, went on to the NFL, played at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's currently on an XFL team. I think it's the Seattle Sea Dragons. Right. So I do want to welcome you here, Chris. We're happy to have you. And, thanks for jumping on. I do want to give you time to just, say whatever you want to say to the fans and to the supporters. How do you feel about where we currently are in this season? And what are your thoughts on Jalen Milroe?
Yes, I appreciate you having me. Honored to be here. Fans, I wouldn't be there without them, the support. I mean, things are hard at Bama, but having people in my corner was always really nice. Really happy with the team this year. I feel like we've overcome a lot of adversity. A little rocky start, new quarterback, new OC, a lot of the freshmen playing in important places. So, for us to start off like we did and be in a position where we can knock off the #1 team in the SEC championship, I think is really impressive, both by the players and the coaching staff.
I agree with you. And I think just coming from a player perspective for an example, I think that speaks volumes. And I know that a lot of the players, you kind of know what things look like. And I know a lot of times we kind of go back to the 2015 season and just how this almost feels like deja vu. And so I feel like for former players, this isn't something new. Like, I don't think that a lot of you are surprised by this. I mean, we saw, Coker kind of have this, similar season going on as far as like the quarterback and, people not fully buying into him immediately. But, I think that where we are right now, we're in the perfect position. Now, Coach Smook, what are your thoughts as far as where we are right now? We're still number 8. How do you feel?
I'm good right now. I definitely think we deserve to be ranked higher. But that's something that's out of our control. But the things we can control, which is getting better every game and putting a consistent product out there every week, we're starting to see some consistency as on all 3 phases of the game. Minus the small mental mistakes by Kool-Aid on the special teams. I think we're poised to be a team to be reckoned with, no matter who lines up across the field from us. Especially with Jalen Milroe, this offense has progressed as he has progressed, and the reason why they're looking so explosive now is solely because of his ability to understand the things that make him comfortable, and that communication between he and Tommy Reese and the rest of that offensive staff was definitely important and a essential thing for this team to grow and to become a complete team. And I think we are really that much closer to being a complete team.
Right. I agree with you. So we had a show back in June. I think it was towards the end of the month. And back in June, I joined the Bama Standard, and we had our Darius Stewart on, who's a former wide receiver. And when he was on, we were just kind of talking about the upcoming season. And I said something. I said it's going to come down to how the West was won. And of course, that's kind of like a cliche. We've heard that before. But at least from what I saw, almost every weekend when we played an SEC opponent, particularly the West component, so LSU, Ole Miss, it seemed like it did come down to that. But I'm more than pleased with what I'm seeing. And honestly, I think that the sky is the limit. There's no ceiling at this point. But I do want to kind of pivot a little bit to you, Chris, coming from an offensive line perspective. So going into this season, we have true freshman Caden Proctor out there. And, it's kind of been mixed feelings about that because some of us may have felt like, okay, he's still a little young. We don't want to put that much pressure on him with him being in those huge games. But then on the flip side of that, well, he has to get experience. And clearly the coaches saw something in him for him to be able to play as a true freshman. Now, what are your thoughts on, Jalen took a lot of sacks, especially early in the season, but considering our game this past weekend against Kentucky, 0 sacks. What do you think about the O-line?
Yeah, O-line is all about continuity. It's about getting better week by week, especially if you're a young player, you're coming out of high school. The speed of the game is a little different to where you probably could get away with maybe having poor technique on some plays and not getting beat. And so I think for Caden, that was a really good thing for him to understand that trust your technique, whether it's a pass rusher that's with speed or power, it doesn't matter. You have the physical tools to do whatever you want to do pretty much. And so throughout the season, it's not just the O-line. It's Jalen's picking up his reads and the receivers getting open. Everything's got to be synced up in order for the quarterback to prevent sacks and for us to get explosive plays. So I think overall, the more the offense grew, the more the O-line got comfortable, the back started trusting everything, and Milroe feels more comfortable standing outside the pocket.
Yep, I agree. And that is a testament to, Jalen as well. We do have to give some credit to the O-line, of course, because they have improved and I'm happy with what I'm seeing. And of course, this time of the year, it really does matter. It does come down to this crunch time where we see, some of these teams in the top 5 in particular, where they may be unbeaten right now, but it's just, it's still a couple of, key games coming up in the next couple of weeks. And so I do think that is a testament to Jalen Milroe growth. And if I'm any, NFL team or, any coach from another conference, another team with any common sense, seeing someone develop like Jalen Milroe has in adversity, that's really what you want to see. And that's why a lot of people kind of compare him to Jalen Hurts. So that right there kind of shows you where that bar is. And I'm sure Jalen Milroe is just another guy who, to him, he doesn't really have a ceiling. Now, I do want to kind of shift to our game against Kentucky. I kind of want to hit on some of the highlights and what we noticed in that game. Jalen Milroe really did set a record, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. And that's, it's just something we haven't seen before. And I think that a lot of the naysayers, a lot of the haters, all that rat poison early in the season, especially after we took that L against Texas, we didn't, people didn't expect that. Now, I honestly, I knew we were going to go. I didn't know how we were going to get there, but I'm like, we're going to be in Atlanta. We're going out to Houston January 8th, and that's just going to be however we get there. It doesn't matter to me. But I do want to ask from both of you, actually, what stood out to you in our game against Kentucky? What on the offensive side, but also the defense, and then we can touch on coaching as well. I'll start with you, Chris. What are your thoughts?
I think for me, I'll touch on the offensive side. I feel like we look comfortable from start to finish. I never felt like we were scrambling to try to play catch up as far as not on the scoreboard, but chasing after yardage. I didn't feel like we were behind the sticks a lot. Everything felt really in control. We felt confident. Everything seemed like it was open. I just thought we had complete control of the game from start to finish. And when you're getting late in the season like that, that's part of that thing when we say we want to peak at the right time. We want to use a game like Kentucky and Chattanooga to feed into that rivalry game against Auburn and ultimately playing the best team in the country. So for us, I think it was a really good game, and momentum like that's going to be huge for us going down the stretch.
Yep. I agree with you. And then Coach Smook, what were your thoughts on our game against Kentucky?
The defense, man, just to see how they've been basically the catalyst for this whole season, but they're continuing to improve. We saw Christian Story get out there and have to play a full game. Started the game and played a solid game. Christian Story played a solid game. Honestly, we didn't miss Jalen Key. I don't see the separation there. So it's good to have that type of depth on the defensive side. But not only with the secondary, drop down a level, 2 levels to the D line. And we're talking about including the outside linebackers and the 4-man pass rush that we were able to create a lot of disruption with. I don't think that's a strong suit of Alabama's as far as schematically, just rushing 4. I think that gives our inside linebackers too much time to think and too much to decipher instead of just letting them play football. And we saw that happen with Trez Marshall. He really just missed a lot of plays, but that D line, that front four, created a lot of opportunities for the linebackers and the secondary to clean up some things. They caused a lot of havoc. That was a great sight to see. And just how aggressive the play calling is with Kevin Steele. That's just I mean, the play where Trez Marshall didn't make the sack, man, if he makes that sack, that's the nail in the coffin. You end the game there, really momentum wise. So cleaning up small things like that, I think this team is learning that all those small moments that can be big moments, we got to make those plays. That's what really propels you to those wins. It keeps you from playing out of, without emotions, but emotionally, with passion. And it's just a thing of beauty when everybody's on the same page.
Yep, I agree. And I think that when everyone is on the same page, you definitely see that play out on the field. Now, one thing that I noticed early in the game is we had good game management and time management as well. I think on our very first drive, we took about 5 minutes off the clock, and that's really what I wanted to see, because to me, when it comes to a coach, that's an aspect of the game, right? Being able to manage the clock, being able to really keep your foots on their backs the entire. I didn't want to see us let off the gas coming off a win, because we put our hearts and our souls out there when we play LSU, and I was concerned that we would come out there. We're playing at Kentucky. It's a really early game. I was concerned that not that we would lose. I didn't think we would lose, but I was wondering if we would really play a full 4 quarters. And just like both of you said, we definitely did. One thing too that I wanted to see is us utilize the tight ends a lot more. I feel like we have always say this. I feel like we struck gold when it comes to, just having the depth that we have at that tight end position. CJ Dupree had a really big play. Amari Nyblack, he had a touchdown. So I think that was awesome. And that's really what we wanted to see. I think our first touchdown was Amari Nyblack and then Kobe Prentice. So just seeing how Tommy Rees is spreading out that receiver position, whether it's a wide receiver, Malik Benson, or if it's, a tight end, I want to, and I still want to see that. And I think this weekend we'll see maybe Robbie Oots and Miles Kitselman and hopefully true freshman Danny Lewis Jr. So then I do want to kind of talk about too a little bit in regards to just the key highlights. And we said this at the start of the season. Honestly, it feels like a lot of this is just confirmation to what we've already been saying, is the impact that the freshmen are going to have. Look at Caleb Downs, for example. I'm sure any school I'm sure NFL teams would love to have him at this point. I mean, this guy, he plays with heart that, you don't really see that often, or maybe it takes a few years to develop the players to be able to see that. And so I definitely think that, that's going to be a key component. We said that they're going to help us, get to the point where we can play for that national championship, because I definitely think that we are the best team, and I think we're just going to get better and better, and we're going to see that. So, but I do want to ask, as far as the penalties, that was something that stood out to me in our game against Kentucky. Now, I think there was an illegal formation penalty. I didn't really see that. It was a couple things that were called, a couple things that weren't. Going into our game against Chattanooga, I think that that's a good game to just kind of work on that discipline aspect, because we can't look down on them either. They're 7-3 this season. They're number 2 in their conference, in the Southern Conference. So, and I do want to just quickly give a shout out to Gavin, 199. What's up, guys? Crazy. Nobody think we can beat UGA. Well, I don't know who think. Look, if people still thinking that, then they just need to find. I mean, I don't know what to tell them at this point. We just need, and that's the thing. We have nothing else to say. You just prove everything out on the field. But I do also want to just kind of look at Ty Simpson. He got in the 4th quarter, and I'm glad that he did, because I do think that it's important to have Ty Simpson, Dylan Lonergan, get out there. And so how did you all feel about Ty Simpson? He only had 3 passing attempts, but to me, he played pretty well. What do you think, Chris?
I think he played pretty well. I want to say he had a play where he had a pretty good scramble as well. Right on cue with the commentator mentioning how he's not as good of a runner as Jalen. He had a scramble right on cue. So for him, just getting out there in real game experience, going against the ones, and not against a lower level team, but a real live SEC team. Any bit of experience, especially at this point in the season, is really critical, because you never know when you'll need them.
Exactly.
My last year in college, we had J-Mo and C'Chi both go down. So we were relying on freshmen and younger players to step in. And so at this point in the season, you want to get as much experience as you can, because it's really limited, because every game is not going to be 20-point, 30-point blowout.
I agree, and I'm glad you touched on that. I remember that when we had Jamison Williams and Mechie go down. I think Mechie went down in the SEC championship game, and I remember it put us in a position where and I think I remember Coach Saban saying that when we lost to Georgia in the national championship, we don't want to get to a place where who's the next guy up. They need to be prepared. I think we put a Jai Hall out there, and we saw what happened, and so that's why all the guys across the board, they just need to be prepared when their number is called. To me, that's a part of the game. It's not about, oh, well, I came out of high school as a 5-star recruit. You're in a whole different system. You just need to practice and be ready to go out there. You never know what's going to happen, So, and Coach Smook, what are your thoughts on Ty Simpson? We know it was a QB battle pretty much the entire season up until maybe the last couple of weeks. But what do you think about how he played out there?
I think Ty's doing exactly what I assumed he would do once he got comfortable. And like I said, everybody always thinks about, the starter when he's getting better. Usually when the starter's getting better, that means the guys behind them are probably progressing too, especially at Alabama. We've seen that a lot where the second guy usually can just about push the first guy. And this was a group, a room of wide receivers that had a lot of questions. We knew we had a pro style quarterback in Ty Simpson with the arm talent. If we wanted to be a pass-heavy offense, we knew we can go to that. But I think Coach Saban saw the development that needed to happen on that protection side. I don't think he was 100% confident in Dalcourt. I don't think he was 100% confident with Caden Proctor being a true freshman. He wasn't sure how that guy would progress. So a lot of that early line shifting and line change, that probably would have set Ty Simpson back. But you got a guy like Milroe that can happen for, and he could kind of rely on that athletic ability to create that room and growth for the offensive line. So, and I'm gonna always fall back to my statement I made. I tweeted it before the season, before the first snap against Middle Tennessee State. I said, if Jalen Milroe goes into Middle Tennessee State game and he struggles, we go into halftime lead by 7, and Ty Simpson gets an opportunity. I don't believe Ty Simpson would have handed the job back. And watching him out there and in control and being decisive about the 3 pass attempts that he did have, just the control and the sense of what he's seeing on the field, being able to decipher the game, he looks just as good with a better offensive line. He doesn't look like he did against USF. So yep. I'm happy to see how he's progressing.
I am too. Even if, and that's the part of it. I think, if you're a true Bama, even not just an Alabama fan, but you understand the game. It's not just about the person who's starting, the second string, even the third string, because you just never know what may happen. I remember Jalen Milroe, he had to get in last year when Bryce got hurt, but he had to go out there and he had to be ready. Now, I will say one thing that quickly stood out to me with Jalen Milroe in our game against Kentucky is just how poised he was. And that's something that I think, especially on that professional level, and let me just shout out Gavin again. Thank you for the donation. I was a believer in Milroe from the jump. Link. Look, I mean, that's the thing. Like, and honestly, I do think that honestly, I'm going to say this. I think Coach Saban knew that it was going to be Jalen Milroe, but because it was so much noise, it was almost like he wanted us to see that, almost like, okay, well, y'all keep talking about it. You know what? I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to put Tyler Buckner out there against South Florida and we'll see what happens. Coach Smoot.
So to kill that, I don't even think it was that. Coach Saban was going to give Ty Buckner his fair shot one way or another. I think it was just fitting because of how comfortable Jalen Milroe looked against Middle Tennessee State. It would be perfect to let Ty Buckner go out there and same amount of prep and same, because the reps were still being split going into the USF week. We didn't know that Milroe wasn't going to start until right before the snap, before the offense went on the field. So I feel like Coach Saban was going to give at least Buckner his fair shake. I think Simpson had already solidified himself as QB2. I think Coach Saban was really trying to see, was there any need for Buckner to be involved as far as going forward scheming, because you never find real success trying to decipher between 3 quarterbacks in a system when you're talking about establishing an identity. And he knew he had to hurry up and get that figured out so that offensive line could progress. So that game, we might have not seen Milroe at but for a quarter if he had played that game.
If
So
at all. Yeah.
yeah.
It's best
Yeah.
to exhaust all those options early in the season as opposed to extending it all the way out into SEC play.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still believe that we had one of the toughest strength of schedules, but I do think that we played it well. Coach Saban said at the start of the season that it would be week to week, so we knew that. Now, I don't think that we thought it would be prolonged, going to however many weeks it actually was. But I will say, just on the subject of Ty Simpson, I remember Ty Simpson last year. I pay attention to our 8A games, our scrimmage games, because I feel like there's always, maybe one or two guys who, they feel like they have something to prove and they want to earn their spot. Well, last year I remember seeing Ty Simpson and I was just like, this guy, like, he just kept reminding me of a Johnny Manziel that hasn't been fully developed just yet. And almost just like the way how mobile he is, his vision, all of that. And I just felt like he just needs a little bit more development. He does need to play behind Jalen Milroe. And I think that, of course, his time will come. But on I guess along with that, looking at this A-Day, I kept talking about Jalen Hill. Like I just kept mentioning it because I'm like, this guy is something, he's going to be something special. You got to recognize it quickly and you have to hurry up and develop them because their numbers, and I do expect to see him out there this weekend. It's actually a few guys that I expect to see. So hopefully, they coach like they need to. I think Tommy Reese, he's heard a lot of us and, he's heard something because he's gotten it together pretty quickly. I don't know if that $2 million, I don't know if that number started decreasing or something, but he's heard something. So I'm happy with that. And how about I love talking about Jam Miller, Jam Master J. He got him a touchdown against Kentucky. I was happy for him. I think Roy Dale had a receiving touchdown. I'm just like,
nice one too.
Yes, like I mean, they just, I'm happy for them and they deserve it. I think if they keep playing the way they are, they deserve it. So, I think overall, I could say most of us are satisfied with our Kentucky shouldn't have scored that many points. I'll say that. But they score because of mishaps on our part. So at least, at least we can say that. Now,
one of them we can control. One of them we can control. That was a fumble.
Yeah.
They really jacked us on that one. But also, if you think about it, even on the 7 points we gave up, man, it was one of those things where we had already flipped the possession battle. Mm-hmm. And they had just caught back up, so it had to kind of level itself out. It's numbers wise, probability and all those things weigh in it. And as a coach, you sit back and you're like, man, we didn't gave them the ball in the red zone 4 times. Like, one has to come out with at least 3. So let's go ahead and prep for the next drive. And I saw that type of defensive play calling with Kevin Steele because the 2 plays before that score, it was like he went extra aggressive, straight man up, and I think that's what got us beat. So the rest of the game, you saw that same look, no changes, and they just kept getting better at it. They just kept our defense just getting better at it. So.
Yeah. I like how Kevin Steele is just letting them. Dallas Turner said it before the season started. I think it was SEC Media Days. He said that Kevin Steele, it's almost as if he had already, there was some trust there because he was just letting them play. And maybe Pete Golden had them muzzle. I don't know. He wasn't letting them get out there and play. I mean, we saw how Ole Miss with Pete Golden, they just let Georgia run all over them. The same Georgia that struggled against UAB. And so I'm definitely happy with Kevin Steele. And I have to give kudos to Tommy Reese. I know I've been hard on him, but he's done a great job. And I think a part of just that development aspect of things is what you can do moving forward. So I'm definitely, I'm proud of what I'm seeing. And I do see a comment from Willie Beeman. It'll be good to see the young guys like Richard Young, Quay Russo, Jeremiah Alexander, Justice Haynes, Sean Murphy, Tanya. Look, you can go down a list. We can keep naming them because there's so many. I mean, along with Quay Russo, remember that was almost like a package deal that we got Quay Russo and James Smith out of Montgomery, Alabama, Carver High School. Okay. Like these guys, they ain't nothing to play with. They literally, I remember they said on signing day that they were going to go to the same school, whichever one that was going to be. And that was just like a very pivotal moment, just to see that, to see these different guys, despite the fact that we were left out of the playoffs last year. We have some of the best guys coming out of the state of Georgia, Justice Haynes, Caleb Downs, Dylan Lonergan. I mean, that speaks volumes, right?
Yes. And sis, it's crazy because these guys, they don't mind sitting behind these starters right now. These guys, they are really bought into making practice hell for the starters. If you look at scout, if you ask any player right now, when they talk about scout team, I think a lot of these linebackers are playing faster because of guys like Richard Young and what's the other kid that's playing that's behind Richard Young? I can't remember the little kid's name, but he been getting the hustle award. His name, he might get some carries this week against Chattanooga. He's behind Richard Young, but their offensive line, you think about it, you got Miles McVay and Ulanine and all these guys having to play scout team reps. Those aren't just like 3rd and 3-star guys. Those are big boys that just need to work on a technique, and you're putting them against their one. So next year, when these young guys have to show up and they're pushed into these roles, it's almost like game reps because they're literally giving the looks every week that's setting our team up. And like you said, Jake Pope, man, I can't wait to see Jake Pope. Jeremiah Alexander, Jake Pope, I feel like they're going to shock a lot of people, not just because Jake Pope is the pretty white boy, you know what I'm saying, but he can play. That boy,
he got some heart. He got heart and soul.
If Jeremiah Alexander didn't make that tackle on the play when behind the line, Jake Pope was right there falling up. I mean, his reaction, him and Caleb Downs, the way they react from the secondary to run support is like no other for them to be so young.
No other. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see Jake Pope too. I'm excited to see Devontae Smith get back out there whenever he's 100%. I think we're almost there. I think a lot of us got used to hearing Devontae Smith on the offensive side of the ball. He at the Philly Eagles right now, balling out. We're talking about on the defensive side. Y'all gonna see him soon. But I do want to just pivot a little bit to our game this weekend against Chattanooga. Like I mentioned that they're 7-3, and they're number 2 in their conference, the Southern Conference. They're right behind Furman. Now, to me, it speaks. I mean, they're 7-3. When you look at their numbers and you see their games, of course, these aren't necessarily teams that we play on a weekly basis for the most part. But one thing that I wanted to point out is that their quarterback, Chase, this is his first year at Chattanooga. This guy has thrown for over, I think, almost 2,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. Now, he has been sacked about 20 times, has 150 rushing yards himself. I think he's 3rd amongst the entire team with the amount of rushing yards. And so that, to me, that speaks volumes. And I think that, a Chattanooga, teams that, they're ranked really high in their conference, those are the ones that you do kind of have to watch out for, especially the fact that we have Auburn, the week after. I just want to make sure that we keep our foot on the gas. But I do want to ask Chris, from your perspective, so how do you feel about, where we are right now going into the game against Chattanooga? Do you feel like, coming off that win against Tennessee, coming off that win against LSU and Kentucky, do you feel like we have that fire is still lit in a sense, or do you feel like we're trying to regroup and we're kind of focused a little bit more on Auburn and we may need to reshuffle things?
I think because the team is seeing how much improvement we made over the season, I don't think there's any turning back as far as getting complacent. We've grown too much. We've come way too far to now get to the end of the season when we haven't, if we're honest, we haven't done anything yet. We're not solidified in the playoffs. We're not SEC champions. We won the West, which is appreciative. Coach Saban says, win the West, win your conference, and then go on from there. And so for us, we're way too far into the season to be looking back and even looking too far ahead, thinking about Georgia, thinking about Auburn. I think the message for the guys in the locker room will be, as much as we want to get the young guys in, this is just as important for us as older guys, as starters, as it is for them. We want to continue to play good and build ourselves up for the next week.
Yep. And that's a good message. Honestly, that's a clip in itself as a message for the players, going into this weekend, that they just need to remember that, literally every weekend we need to be 1-0. I mean, that's the goal. And like we said before, when it comes to just that Bama standard, it's not just an internal thing, that it's external too, because the playoff committee, they hold us to a different standard. So it's not about beating teams we do need those style points. And so that's why I think, allowing Kentucky to score 21 points, that's something that we didn't really want to see. And it's more so because of that side of things, because we're kind of judged on a different scale, if you will. Now, Coach Smook, how do you feel, considering Chattanooga is 7-3, they're 2nd in their conference. I mean, they have a guy, and I'm going to get to him, a wide receiver who's almost at 1,000 yards, receiving yards. So how do you feel about Chattanooga and us just going into that game? Do you feel like, the guys, like they still got that fire underneath them, or do you feel like maybe, this may be a game where they try to take their foot off the gas?
This Bama team this season, they not taking their foot off the gas.
Nah.
That team played every rep they was on the field against Kentucky, and that game, if we wanted to get worried, we should have got I would have been worried if we go up 21 to, I think 21-7 minus, take away the mistakes. We're up and then they all of a sudden get, 21, or it's 27-21. It never got close. The game never was out of hand. Mental mistakes that we made, we cost those. They didn't cost those. So this team is awake. Everybody was talking about the early game is going to get us. We came out of score on the first drive, like you said, sis. We take 5 minutes, ease into the game. We really, honestly, if Jalen Milroe wanted to on that first pass, he could have threw a touchdown. It was there, and you could tell he was just kind of like, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. But he knew how important it was to build momentum. It's okay to have a spark. I think you save your sparks for like a Auburn or a UGA, but like to work and get reps and get guys technically sound and more timing together, like Malik Benson, you're going to need him in big games in the future. So I feel like this week is going to be that type of game for this offense, our offense. Now, as far as stopping their offense, they do have some legit guys at receiver based off the numbers, but the numbers don't tell everything, because you go look at that schedule. There's not a top 50 ranked defense they've played. There's not a top. I mean, they don't have. There's one guy on Sanford's roster that's projected to go in second round in the draft, but you don't see any of their guys, being projected. Even the wide receivers who breaking 1,000 yards, they're transfer guy. One of them is a transfer guy. The quarterback is a transfer guy from UCLA. So I mean, you need more than that to beat a Kevin Steele coach talented Alabama defense. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need more than that to even make a dent in the side of the shed. So I don't see this game being very close. I feel like this is the game where I would love to see just an aggressive defensive play calling style, make guys man up, make guys follow guys across the field. Like, don't give away your mix schemes. Just make guys win their one-on-ones. This would be a perfect game to let guys win one-on-ones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I see. This is a perfect game to just go and outman the guy in front of you. Yes, stick to the scheme. Yes, execute all those things. Yes, accordingly. But this is a game where guys should be able to win one-on-ones consistently all day.
Yeah. Yep. The entire game. And I do see a comment from Brian Green. Milroe was 7 for 7 with 2 touchdowns to start the game. Yeah, they weren't asleep. Nah, man, we woke. Look, and we stand up. We ain't even going to sleep, like we stand up. But I do want to, y'all know how I am. Like, I like to break down the opponent, like, because for me, how can you really strategize against your opponent unless you really, break them down? And so I'm sitting there looking at, Chattanooga, just kind of what they're working with. And so they're coming off of a bye week, right? And the week before, they lost to Furman 17-14. Now, this is, Furman, they're number 1 in their conference. But the thing that stood out to me is that, for one, Chattanooga actually could have won that game. Their quarterback, Chase, was sacked 5 times. And when you look at the numbers, of course, Chattanooga could have beat them. But I think the key thing that helped Furman win was their defense. They were pretty aggressive. And so I think that with that in perspective, that's going to be a key component. Start of the season, there was talk about Chattanooga becoming O-line U, because they had a couple O-linemen that's been drafted over the last couple of years. And I just think it's interesting just to kind of hear, what's been said about them. They have it seemed like they've been relying a little bit more like on Geno Appleberry and game, and then they have another guy, Alem Ford. Both of them, I think, have rushed about 500 yards this season, and that's pretty good. I mean, considering where we are. And also looking at their passing game, I mentioned they have a guy who is almost at about 1,000 yards. He's actually out of the state of Georgia. He's a junior, Jamoy Mays, and this guy, he's averaging about 17 yards per reception. I think he's pretty good. Now you have to put that into perspective because they haven't played a defense like Alabama or like Georgia, but I think it still speaks volumes. They have another guy at about 800 yards, Javin Watley. So, they have some things. And like you said, I think it goes back to your point, Coach Smook, that it's going to be more so like a one-on-one type battle. That's really what it's going to have to be. And they're going to have to solidify. I mean, it's one thing to prepare for an LSU or a Tennessee. We kind of expected to see certain things. But against a team like Chattanooga, I really want to see like, okay, let me see more of you as as a player. Let me see more of you and, what to expect going forward. So I am, excited about our upcoming game against Chattanooga. I think that that's a good segue into our game against Auburn. Like you said, Chris, we don't want to look too far ahead. Of course, like that excitement, we already knew we was going to be in Atlanta December 2nd at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I got that like locked in because we already expected it, right? Like we already know what it is, bro. Like that's just what it is. That's what we do. But I do think that, keeping our heads in the game, I think that you look at the quarterback position, right? And just how it's a lot of leadership that's involved with that. I think that Jalen Milroe can help keep the players level set, let them enjoy the wins, that 24-hour rule. But I do want to know from both of your perspective, and I want to kind of talk about score predictions. I know I usually save that towards the end, but as we talk about our game against Chattanooga, how do you feel this game is going to play out? And the first question I'm going to ask both of you, the first question is, do you feel like Coach Saban is going to let us kind of blow them out like a 49-0, 52-0, or what do you really see happening? And I'll start with you, Chris.
I was thinking that this question was coming, so I was kind of thinking about my answer, and part of me feels like I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't as big of a blowout as we would expect if they try to see how we feel playing a different style of ball. Because when you play different teams, you can't play the same style of football all the time. We want to be a team that can be explosive. We can slow the game down. We can win by defense. We can win by offense. So I'm not really sure what to make of it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was one of those games where we kind of leaned on maybe getting 5, 6, 7-minute drives every time, and maybe it only ends up being a 35. I said only 35, 40-point blowout.
Yeah. Okay. 30. So you're thinking 35. So okay. I could see that. I'm thinking 35-0-ish. We'll see. Coach Smook, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking this is a game. If I'm feeling like Tommy Rees, and what I'm seeing from this team, I don't think we start the game with Manila play calling, and I don't think Jalen Milroe wastes time to kind of get those numbers up real quick, because ideally this is the game you need to get your second guys, your next man up. I mean, I don't even think it's as far as second string. I think you need to get like those 5th and 6th rotation receivers in with some meaningful reps. You need to get that 7th and 8th, 9th DB into the rotation with some good reps. Your 4th and 5th inside linebacker, especially if Lawson isn't going this week. I would definitely love to see an inside linebacker rotation go 5 deep with Lawson, Campbell, Jefferson, Blackshire, and Jeremiah Alexander. Not in that particular order, but I would love to see that rotation get that deep this week. So in order to have that, you want Jalen Milroe to take advantage of the plays early. See if he can take advantage of the big ones quick, because we might need that type of start against Auburn and Jordan Hare. I feel like that's what we might see, a kind of a mixed, schematically a mixed game plan for the future opponents. Not overlooking Chattanooga, but the type of defense that they present is similar to what we're going to see. Nowhere near the skill level, but schematically they present some of the similar opposition. So I could see a 45-49 3 victory, 49-0 victory. I could see that type of game this weekend.
I like what you said too. I think you said mix those rotational guys in with the starters. Like I want to see Ty with the entire first team offense.
Yes.
I want it to just be he's out there with 2-3 other backups. I want a full first team because we might need
that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that goes to, just that word strategy. A game like this, we do want to see, I want to see us come out and get some points on the board. I want us to have a fast start so that we can put those, the other guys in, because I just feel like with a team like Chattanooga, you just never know. They may get a little creative. We just never know. I believe this is our last home game. And so I do think we need to kind of go out with a bang. I would try to, if I'm Tommy Rees, I would want to get some points on that board pretty quickly, just so that we feel comfortable enough to pull Jalen Milroe out. I really want to see Ty Simpson out there, and I really want to see Dylan Lonergan out there as well. I see Gavin again. Thanks for the donation. You making it rain out here. Okay. Y'all see CD has 83 tackles and is top 4. I mean, Caleb Downs, right? Top 4 safety. I mean, are we surprised? Like, I'm not at all. This guy,
it's not that I'm surprised that he is. It's just the fact that he's a freshman, a true freshman.
Yeah.
A kid that showed up in the spring, came out spring practice, and it was like no slowdown from the time we saw him at spring practice to the game against Middle Tennessee State, to the one mistake. He only made one big mistake this whole season, and that was against Texas. A true freshman getting outplayed by probably the second best offensive coordinator in college football, probably the number one wide receiver or one of the top three in Xavier Worthy running that route on him. That was just you can't live with it. You can't picture a more perfect start to a career than what Caleb Downs has been able to achieve. Even I would go as far, his start is better than Will Anderson's was when he was at Alabama.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like Minka too. How Minka came in his first year.
Yeah. It's just sometimes you have those guys. It's almost like, are you really 18 or 19? Like, do we need to check that birth certificate?
Chris, you made me recant my statement because I forgot Minka came in and started at the Star.
Yeah.
His freshman year, right? Am I right, Justin? Was it his true freshman year he started at Star? He never played boundary. He went Star to free, I believe. I mean, if I'm wrong, correct me, but that's the hardest position in the secondary, playing that Star position.
Yeah. It just shows a lot. Like you said, that one mistake that Caleb Downs made in that game against Texas. I mean, it's like something like that you don't hold against him. Even if he made one in the game against Kentucky, it's just being a true freshman. I just think, honestly, I feel like there are people who are not fans of Alabama, but they keep hearing Caleb Downs' name, for example, and they want to watch just to see, okay, is this guy as good as they say he is? Like, surely he's not, in the top 5 safeties in the nation as a true freshman, because you just don't see that, too often, especially coming out of the state of Georgia. I'm gonna keep honing in on that because I think that it speaks volumes. Not just Caleb Downs, Justice Haynes. Like, I know that we have the ability to recruit heavily across the country, but coming off of a national championship, that says a lot. Daquan Menzie, Star is the hardest position. Look, coming from another Alabama legend, right? Like, I mean, it's something that I think people need to keep in perspective, actually, as we talk about Caleb Downs and any of the other guys. But, being a true freshman, that speaks volumes. So we talk about, where we are as far as rankings. So the new rankings came out yesterday. Of course, they keep us at number 8. I personally think that we should be 6 or 7. I am being biased, but I do, when you really put everything into perspective, our loss against Texas, our win against LSU, we've had some notable wins. According to the playoff committee, that's a part of what they look at, your strengths of your wins and losses. There's a lot that goes into this pot, but it's not weighed on the same scale across the different teams and conferences. And so that is something that needs to be talked about. And hopefully I'm in that room to talk about it at some point. I mean, because I got some stuff to say. Like, you hear me go on my rants, but it's justifiable because I wouldn't like to see Alabama be left out. And so when we really talk about, the key matchups this weekend, that'll really put us in the best position to make it to the national championship and to be in that top 4. We think about the fact that Georgia is number 1. I honestly think that they should be number 1. There's no reason why they should have put Ohio State at number 1, considering how they've been playing. Now, I know Georgia, they let UAB score a lot of points on them, and they've had some rough starts too, but I still think that the style of play, the coaching, the conference, the games that they played, it's just a different level. So we do have some key matchups this weekend. And the first one is actually, it's a lot of noise right now. You have Michigan playing at Maryland. So Michigan is number 3 right now. I've said how I feel about this whole Michigan thing, and I'm going to keep saying it. I like what Stephen A. Smith has been saying this week on First Take. Stephen A. Smith, Paul Feinbaum has shared some good commentary as well, and Shannon Sharp. And I know that people have, and I really will call it emotions, because I don't think we're looking at this from the right perspective. I personally feel like, like Stephen A. Smith was saying, when you really look at it, you're going to have a team that doesn't get in because a team that's, essentially cheated is getting some favoritism. And so, we have Michigan playing at Maryland. Maryland has only lost 4 games. You have Tua's brother Talia out there starting, and they're a pretty good team. It's an early game, same time as our game, but how do y'all feel about that game? I mean, do you think that, Michigan easily skates by on that one, or what do you think? Starting with Chris.
I don't know. I think it'll be similar to how some of their other games have gone. they've had a couple slow starts, but they usually pick it up towards the end and they make it no contest. So it wouldn't surprise me, especially knowing that they have Ohio State this next weekend,
Yeah.
to try to get them out the way. But I don't anticipate them to be an instant blowout. They might have to work for it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Coach Smook? You think the same?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Chris. That Ohio State team does not look dominant by any means. They have been fortunate. If we joked about Georgia's starting schedule, they literally have, UT Martin every week in that conference. So it's one of those things where you're kind of like, and that's no disrespect. That conference is in a down year. And Ohio State is really holding on to I guess you could say history as far as their prestigious program, like Notre Dame, always coming in with the same hype every year. But yeah, they if they do get tested this week at Maryland, it's going to take like a flawless effort from Talia and that Maryland offense, because that defense is atrocious. That Maryland defense is that good thing they ain't got Pete Golden. I'll say that.
Yeah, you're right. Pete Golden, he still needs some help. The reason why I wanted to kind of hone in on this game, so I was just thinking about this whole Michigan thing, and of course I'm always going to be biased. I want to see Alabama get in every year, even if we lose 3 games, we need to get in. No, but just being realistic. So I was thinking about this, and just this analogy came to my mind. Like, say for instance, we go back to 2020, for example. We know that this whole thing has been going on for the last few years. Let's think about 2020. Let's say you have 4 people in a car, right? You have a driver and 3 passengers. They go rob a bank. They get away with it. They get the cash. They get away with it, right? 3 years later, you're in 2023. Now the police are looking for them. You think they're not going to get the driver? They benefited from it. You see what I'm saying? It's not, I always say certain things are just not rocket science. And I drive that point home because I feel like it's something that the playoff committee really needs to consider, especially considering that the athletic director of Michigan is on the committee. And I do see another comment from Gavin. Thank you. Look, Gavin, you going hard. Gavin, Look, keep lighting up the chat. Everyone who's on, share this video, everything. So Gavin, the committee is wild. We beat LSU by 2 touchdowns, and LSU beat Missouri at home by 10, and Missouri is ranked 9 with 2 losses right behind us. It is a joke, and I like that you put those emojis at the end because it is a joke, right? Like, we lose to Texas by 10, we beat LSU by 14. LSU was in the top 15. So like the math ain't math, and it makes no sense. And that's why, I really wish there was a way to kind of I feel like we need to do something about it, but I don't know what that is. But that's why I'm giving this analogy, because I feel like the people who really should be on the committee are people who are commentating these games. The people who know this stuff, the Kirk Herbstreets, the Maria Taylors, like, they need to, that's just my opinion. Jarvis, this committee is a joke. It is. And honestly, I feel like there's so much opportunity to where the committee could not only do the right thing, but they could really make an impact to where people actually may want to be a part of it. They may want to, you just never know what could come from that. A room full of biased know-it-alls. Yeah, I agree. And I think that, honestly, I feel like Georgia is going to start experiencing that too, because it's just something about just human nature when you have people who win a lot. You look at how the Patriots were a while back, with Tom Brady. People just don't like it. It says more about the person and their character. But I think when it comes down to the fundamentals, football is football. That's the purpose of having the top 4, is to have the best 4 teams. I don't care if 3 of the 4 teams are from the same conference. If it's the best 4 teams, that's just what it is. Coach Smook, I see you laughing. What you laughing about?
My guy in there, he holding it down. GT18, keeping it clean. He said, "Cuck the fomiti."
And y'all can interchange those letters however you want to. I ain't telling you what to do, but no, look, I'm trying not to really take it there. I really hope that they do the right thing. I don't think, like I gave that analogy just now, the driver benefits from the robbery as well. So, I understand not wanting to penalize the players, but at the same time, if you think that they're getting those signals and just putting it in their back pockets and going home, that's not happening. Come on. The last few years they've been in the top 4. How do you think that happens? But see, they didn't have TCU's signals, and that's how they got beat by them last year. So if we really want to have that conversation, we can, right? Like, I just think that at some point, accountability has to be held. And I'm glad that the Big Ten, I honestly don't think they've done enough yet. I think a lot of people are kind of saying, well, a Jim Harbaugh not being on the sideline, what does that really mean? You have to set an example, So I don't know. That's just how I feel. I know I went on a rant, but I think
No, you
that
good. You took everything I was gonna
look,
say.
because the last thing that you want to do is wait until December 2nd when we have these conference championship games, and then you let somebody skate right on in, and they done got everybody's signal sitting up there looking crazy, and you have people who should have been in there and they suffer. So I don't want to hear anything from Jeff Saturday talking about, well, the players are going to suffer for all their hard work. Well, the players from these other teams would suffer too. So I just think that everything needs to be put into perspective. Jarvis stated Bama has 3 top 18 wins. No way in hell Bama isn't a top 5 team. I mean, look, I agree. I share the same sentiment. Coach Smokey, you had something?
I honestly think if they had us at 6, Texas at 5, Oregon at 7, and you have your top 4 undefeated, playing them based off week-to-week basis, that would be more understandable. But to have us behind Oregon, who doesn't have a top 10 win, or what top 20 rated defense have they played?
Yeah.
What team on their schedule? I think their schedule win-loss ratio is even in the negative. So I don't understand the committee right now, but my hopes are, and traditionally, like I said on other shows, my hopes are that that 3rd and 4th week rankings, like we didn't see the change this week, but hopefully this 4th week where you see a lot of these teams being Michigan and Ohio State, they got games this weekend. The what happens on the field is really accounted for and put into those rankings, because honestly, Alabama could be your solid number 6 right now with no question. They definitely should be at least number 6. I can understand not being 5, with Texas keeping their trend and their momentum going and having to win over us. But even at some point, then you got to account they took their only loss to a 2-loss Oklahoma team. Our only loss is to a 1-loss Texas. So how's our loss look so bad, but their loss looks decent enough to keep them in front of us when the team that they lost to has literally dropped 2 games outside of them. So it doesn't make sense as far as resume, strength of schedule. None of that is lining up with their reasoning, but hopefully the obvious starts to rear its head as those top 5, I think it's 5 undefeateds right now. Once they, have to let all that sort out.
Yeah, I agree. And I see Willie's comment. Seems like the committee is not watching any games or highlights. Honestly, if you're going to, here comes another rant. If you're going, and Jimmy Clay, she knows her stuff. Thank you, Jimmy. Look, I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar comments. And look, I appreciate the love. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell the haters to come and watch us, man. Because they watching us anyway. You might as well tune in on a Wednesday night. They ain't got nothing better to do. But look, this committee, it's beyond watching highlights and numbers. You better be watching the games, because how are you truly judging these teams? So I would think that that's the number 1 requirement. We're gonna find out. I'm gonna try to find a way to contact Boo Kerrigan, because we about to find out what's going on with this. Because last year I do believe we were snubbed, but this year we can't let that happen. Ephraim Davis, FSU versus Louisville. That's gonna be a big game. Louisville, I think they're in the top 10 or 15 now. Bama versus Georgia. Yeah, Bama versus Georgia, Washington versus Oregon, Michigan versus Ohio State, Texas versus Oklahoma. It will all play out. Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Louisville might upset Florida State, like for real.
They could. They very well.
So I was listening to Joe Klatt this morning. I usually take what he says with a grain of salt, but he made a good point. He released the top 10, and he had Florida State at 8. And his whole premise was looking at the games and saying who will beat who right now.
Yeah.
Like we've been saying, I don't think the committee's taking that approach.
Mm-mm.
If we really look at it, is Florida State beating any of these teams?
No. They're not beating Oregon, Washington, Texas. They're not beating any of those teams behind them, and they're sure as heck not beating. I think Florida State might give Ohio State a run, but I feel like Ohio State defense could cause enough pressure on Jordan Travis. That's what's holding Ohio State together. So
yeah.
Games too is just it's not impressive. It's not
not at all. Not at all. Exactly. The Bama Standard Network, each year the committee picks their flavor of the week team. Last year was TCU. This year it's Oregon. Well, look, We're not having it. It's a few more matchups this weekend that I wanted to mention. Georgia, of course, is playing at Tennessee. That's going to be a good game. I really wish that, aside from our game against Tennessee, I wish that Tennessee was, playing a little better just to give them a better game, because I don't know. Seeing how Tennessee lost last weekend, I don't think I
I
can
don't.
see.
And
Yeah,
Brock is back,
Brock is
and I
back.
mean, it's not looking good for Tennessee unless that defense can play a half a step more clean than they play against us. It's going to be a long one for Tennessee because Georgia's offense is humming right now. That offense is, even while Brock was going, they didn't miss a beat. As a matter of fact, I saw more things without Brock Byers that
Yeah,
made me respect that offense a little bit more.
I
But
noticed that too.
also, yeah, but also it gave me confidence that the type of things that we do on defense, they're not, not looking too far ahead, but playing against a team that does that, they simplified enough, they just win their matchups. I think, like you said earlier when we was talking about that, we're the only team that probably can match up pound for pound with Georgia talent for
Yeah,
talent, on each side of the ball. So
yeah.
I not looking too far ahead, but Georgia is definitely a team that if they get going early against Tennessee in Knoxville, it's gonna be a quiet night.
But it's gonna be a good game. Let's just say that. Now we also have Minnesota at Ohio State. Minnesota is tricky. That's tricky. You just don't know with them. It could be a decent game. I don't know. You have Washington playing at Oregon State, and that's a night game. We have to consider too. Oregon State, they beat Utah, which has a good defense. Colorado. So you just don't know. I personally don't. I need to see more. And if I'm on the committee, I would want to see more, because it's one thing to be 9-0 or 10-0, but have you played a defense in the top 10 or top 25? Have you played an Alabama defense? Because to me, at that point, I can't necessarily say that you deserve to be in the top 5, or maybe even top 10, to be quite honest. I mean, it's another night game, Texas at Iowa State. Iowa State is 6-4, so you never really know. But Iowa State has beat Oklahoma State, TCU, and Cincinnati. So those are some key wins. I think Texas and Washington, between one of the two, you just never know. So I don't know. What do you think as far as like a team that has the biggest chance of losing this weekend? What do y'all think? Chris, start with you.
I actually just was looking at Brian Green's comment, and I'm going to say Iowa State, Texas. So I was at the TCU game last week when they played Texas, and I think Jonathan Brooks, he went down. He's done for the year. That's a big loss for him. He's there everything on offense. He was a 3-down back. That's going to be, there's going to be a tough replacement for him. They do have a good team, but they have this trend of kind of taking their foot off the gas. And if you get into an environment where you've got a hungry road crowd that knows what you're playing for, they don't have anything to do but spoil your season, it can get dangerous for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Coach Smoot.
I was going right there to the Texas game, but I'll take another route. I want to talk about everybody's laughing at this game, but this Georgia Tennessee game, like I said, I know I'm leaning on Georgia to keep humming, but I feel like if there was a game for Joe Milton to kind of just have his moment, it would be against Georgia. He's that type of dude. He is that type of dude. He tried it against Alabama, and I think we kind of just took it from him. I think
he came in too arrogant, man. We had to let him know, like, pipe down, sir.
We definitely took it from him. We had to take it, because if we would have tried to just let it fizz out, it wasn't going anywhere. That kid, he's competitive.
But looking forward to the playoffs, we want Georgia to remain at number 1 for when we play them. That's the key point. Yeah, we need them to stay at number 1. And matter of fact, we don't need them to just beat Tennessee. We need them to beat them convincingly. I know, we typically don't really pull for them, but we have to kind of look at it in the perspective of what sets us up in the best scenario to, make it to the playoffs. So, and now this is senior day as well this weekend. So there are some key seniors that we, will be looking forward to seeing out on the field. I do want to shout out Davis Lewis Love. Thanks for the super chat and the donation. I believe the committee is trying to make the 4-team selection controversial to get more people on board for the 12-team playoff next year. I think so too, but I think that if things were done right the first time, see, now this is what happens when you don't do stuff right the first time and you don't lay that foundation the way that you should to begin with. Now you have to work backwards and look at stuff a little bit do things that should have been considered before. You know, there were certain things that they could have done early on years ago, because let's keep in mind, they changed this from the BCS to the college football playoff after the 2011 season when Alabama played LSU and lost to them 9-6. And then we played them in the national championship and beat them 21-0. So we have to remember why it was even started in the first place. Ephraim Davis, Bama versus Washington for the Natty. Yep, I said it.
Yikes.
Any thoughts?
No.
Nah, you tripping, Ephraim. Ephraim, you tripping, dog.
Nah, he just here playing. Look, he just playing. He just want to get a reaction. Surely he doesn't mean that.
Now, if Washington gets in and they get to see, because I don't think even when we beat Georgia, they won't put us in at number 1. If Washington has to see, if they're number 2 and they have to see us, they getting blown out. They getting blown out. But if they end up getting number 1 over like Michigan or Ohio State, they might sneak past one of those guys. Which one of them make it into the play. Washington might sneak past Ohio State because
they could.
Ohio State offense is garbage and their defense can be beat with. I mean, they haven't seen an elite offense, so
yeah. We'll see. And as I mentioned, this is Senior Day this weekend. I have to shout out all the seniors. I'm proud of them, and I like how they've kind of taken the young guys under their wings. And I think that that's important too, because you got these young guys coming into this new system. We have new coaches aside from Coach Saban. You know, it's a lot to take in, and plus all this noise and rat poison, the naysayers. So I'm just honestly, I'm proud of all the seniors. Do y'all have any in particular that you want to kind of shout out or mention? Coach Smoot.
My guy Malachi Moore, man.
Yeah,
I remember his first season coming in COVID year, and you know, even though that year doesn't count against him, I don't see Malachi coming back. He's had that type of return season you want to see from him, so definitely him. Chris Braswell, I'm glad to see him exploding on the scene with his 1 year as his first year as a full-time starter, and stepping up to the plate and really doing what was expected. And guys like Eboybe and Seth McLaughlin, you guys that's been there, and Dalcourt. Dalcourt hasn't been the best performer for us, but he's definitely been a willing teammate. He's been a great teammate, carries himself with professionalism. So I'm glad to see a lot of these guys go out on a high note, with this season and how it's been. This is a storybook season with the losses, how we just rebounded and kept continuing to get bigger, better.
Yeah, this is one of those. It's like a 2015 season where you continue to talk about it even after we win the national championship. Chris, any seniors that you can think of that you may want to shout out or call out?
Yeah, I have to look up who was seniors because whole COVID year still kind of throws me off a little bit. But I'm gonna shout out my 2 guys, Seth and Darian, for sure. With Seth, the growth I've seen from him, because I've known him personally for a couple of years now, the growth he's had from being a freshman, coming in willing to learn, to stepping in as he was a 3rd-string center. There he went to the championship and playing like a starter the moment he got in. And then Darian as well, him being selfless, no matter if it's center or guard, if they need a mentor leader guys, he's very selfless. He does whatever the team needs him to do. So.
Coach Smoot.
I didn't know CJ Dupree was a junior.
He transferred from Maryland.
Yeah, he transferred in Maryland.
Yeah. I thought he was a senior transfer. That's crazy.
Why I looked it up. That's why I looked it up.
That's what I'm saying. I thought he was a senior transfer.
Y'all look. If he stays, we have Caleb Odom and I think Jay, guy out of Alabama, 2 tight ends that are coming in next year that are going to be really good. I told y'all we have this depth that we have at that tight end position. We need to keep our eyes on that. And I do want to say just really quickly, we talk about these seniors, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're laying that foundation, because when you look at the younger guys that we have this year, plus the 2024 class, if y'all think this class was something special, look, 2024 and 2025, those are on a whole different level. And I'm saying that now, y'all are going to see it. So we are winding down. I'm happy to have both of y'all on. We had a really good night, really good topics to discuss. But I do want to mention that we have another show coming on tonight. Shortly after this show, it's called Teague's Take, hosted by JT and George Teague. So it'll air shortly after this at 8:15 Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. East or 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, I do want to ask, both of you have social medias or anything that you want to inform the viewers on? Chris, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm primarily on Twitter right now, or X, whatever we're calling it these days. It's at BG Chris Owens. And yeah, I'll probably see y'all for Thanksgiving. I'll be at somebody's house.
Right. Hey, what Stephen M. Smith said on our post game, he said, man, it's that crock pot Bama. He had me hungry. He was talking about that pot roast. That crock pot Bama. And you're also on the post game show this weekend. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
He like, I need to check.
I just show up whenever people tell me to. I'm just, yeah.
Right. No, that's good though. That's good. And anything else that you want to call out, or?
No, I think my mom's watching. Shout out, Mom. That's about it.
Shout out, Mom. Yeah. That's what's up. Coach Smook, any socials that you want the viewers to follow you on?
I mean, Coach Smook on everything. Really active on Twitter now. Definitely want to provide the Discord. We'll be providing a Discord link in the live game simulation preview. We will be doing one versus Chattanooga, and we're trying to put 80 up on them. This is going to be a different one, different vibe this weekend. Trying to get C'Chi on the show for a few minutes to do an interview. I might need to text Chris to get on there this Friday night. What you doing, Chris? I'm putting you on the spot. The people want to see you. Get on there. Get on there and call some plays for us.
Man, Chris, you on high demand, man. Look.
See, I would Friday night, but the school here that I trained in the offseason, Cedar Hill, second round of the playoffs, I gotta go show love.
Oh yeah, Cedar Hill. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. But yeah, man, definitely Friday night, pull up for the live game simulation. And then I think I have a Bleacher Report segment tomorrow. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Been on the move so much. But yeah, Coach Smook on everything. If you follow my socials, mainly Twitter, you'll be able to keep up with everything. And once again, C'Chi, appreciate you for having me, sis. And Chris, thank you for being on, bro. It's always a good time, man. Roll Tide, everybody.
Yeah, it's all love. It's all love. Look, my social, y'all already know, but you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence. It's a long name, but look, it makes sense. So I'm glad to have everyone here. Thanks to everyone who was live and active in the live chat and, just engaging. We always appreciate that. Thanks to those who donated. Thank you for your support. Those who've left comments. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and go back and watch the replay, because look, we dropped those dimes. We got more to drop this weekend, in our post-game show. So we'll see y'all in Atlanta on December 2nd. Roll Tide, roll. And look, we finna eat. We about to eat.
Yes, sir.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.